Hi, this is Ken Adams, and welcome to this edition of the Valley View. And this week we'll be talking about a subject we talk about, last year we talked about the Elizabeth Bowers Zambia Education Fund, and we had Linda Bowers and Jennifer Bowers come in and talk about it, but we referred to it at that time as Beth's Girls, but these girls are no longer girls, they're young ladies, and so it's transitioned. And so I wanted to bring them back so that we could talk a little bit about what's been going on, because I think it's an interesting story, plus it's something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. So Linda, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the history of how it started.
I think Jenny's going to talk to you about that.
Sure, I would. First of all, I'm really glad to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
And thank you for inviting us back.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how EBZEF was founded, basically. Elizabeth Bowers was in the Peace Corps, and she grew up rather basically getting what she needed in her life, not wanting for material and whatnot. Privilege, thank you. And so she wanted to give back. She wanted to give back to those she felt were less fortunate. And so she went and served in the Peace Corps, and she went to Zambia. And while she was in Zambia, she was an aquaculturist, and she worked with a village in Lumwana West, and she was doing teaching them how to be self-sufficient, and teaching them how to raise fish for protein and the economy for the village. And while she was living there, she became very close with the women, and she was actually a role model for many of the women there. And as she was working there and living there, she became a little bit concerned about the women or the children that were getting married at, say, 12 and having many children. And so she basically, well, you want to go from there?
Yes, well, Beth was very popular in the village, and this is a remote village, in very remote rural village in northwest Zambia. And while she was serving, we lost her in a bicycle accident. She was air flighted to Pretoria in South Africa. She had the best care she possibly could have, but they weren't able to save her. However, she was able to continue giving back, and she was able to donate her organs to 26 other people and so on. And in memory of Beth, and in light of her concern for the girls in the village, we began to receive funds from people for, we had a memorial service for Beth at Willamette University. Both her father and I taught at Willamette University. And people began to donate to us, and we had some funds, and we thought, what shall we do with these funds? And we got some advice from her advisor in the Peace Corps, Dan Irvine, and he suggested that we should have a scholarship for girls from the village, because at that time most girls were not being educated. If they were, it was only up to maybe 5th grade or 7th grade. And again, as Jenny said, they were being married at age 12 and having 8 to 10 children. There's no secondary school in the village, so to go beyond the village basic school went up to grade 9. But to go beyond grade 9, they had to travel 60 kilometers north to Mwinilunga, and they had to go to a boarding school, which was exorbitantly expensive. So this is a subsistence farming community.
Yes.
And I suppose they make less than $1 a day. And if the crops are good, everybody eats, and if they're not, people starve. So they live that basically.
Right.
That basically. So if there was any money available to send anybody to school, they would, of course, send the boys and not the girls, because the girls would go to live with the husband's family, and there'd be no return on their investment. So we began to offer scholarships for the girls. Do you want to say more about that?
Sure. So we began to offer scholarships for the girls, and we started out with about 14 girls. And here's a picture of Elizabeth, by the way, with her family there. And I also wanted to show a picture of Beth's girls.
We called her Beth for short, and
Yeah.
so the girls called themselves Beth's Girls.
Beth's Girls.
Right.
Yes.
And this is 2006.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 12 years. So anyway, we started with the scholarships with about 14 women, and what happened? And so they would go up to grade 7, and then that's all that the government would help pay for. And then once from 8 to 12, the government doesn't help pay for schooling anymore, and the children would have to go up to Minilunga, which is about 80 kilometers away. And so that's where the EBZEF scholarships started to come in, and it allowed many of the women to start going to secondary school and pursue further education, which was absolutely fabulous. And one of the things that that came out of that was when many of the women were going to school and they would come back home, they had a lot of chores and things like that that they needed to do. They had chores such as getting water, making the food, and the men didn't have to do that kind of work. And so after all that kind of work, it would be dark outside, and then they would be expected to do their schoolwork. And that's also where EBZEF has helped to build a memorial library in Beth's name in the village as well, with solar panels, so the girls can study at night.
If
or later in the
their
day.
families were wealthy and could afford a candle, then they could study at night.
But so with the solar power, you have like batteries or something?
We
so
do. We do. I just want to say one more thing about
Yeah.
about the girls before we talk about the
library.
library. We've sent over 300 girls to date. We have given scholarships to over 300 girls, and they have gone to secondary school, and some of them are actually now going on to college. And so, as I say, Beth was their only educated woman as a role model, but now they have become their own role models. And we have a girl that just graduated in radiography, in a 3-year program in radiography. And her sister is going to school in physiotherapy. We have 2 Beth's girls who had severe eye problems, and asked us if we would please help them get lenses for their eyes before they went up to secondary school, because they were afraid they wouldn't have the support they did in the village from their families. And so we made contact with, we're such a small organization, but we have big partners. We have Peace Corps on the one hand and World Vision on the other, and tell you more about those in a minute. But we're always looking for partners to help with issues. So my father was a Lion, and I knew that Lions clubs worked with Vision, and we got in touch with the Salem Lions, and they put us in touch with the International Lions, and we found Lions clubs in Zambia. And in Kitwe, which is about a day's drive away from our village, there's a big eye clinic, and there was a Lions club there that helped us and said yes, they would supply the lenses. So the headmaster took both girls, the sisters, on the day's journey to the eye clinic, and it turned out they had cataracts, and they had cataracts since birth. And that Lions Club stepped up, and it got these girls surgery for their cataracts and lenses. And now what I want, and one of the girls, by the way, is an albino, which is being doubly disadvantaged in Zambia.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also that usually comes with other problems like vision problems and other coordination kind of issues too sometimes.
She doesn't have the coordination issues,
Right.
but she did, of course, have the eye problem. But Priscovia, her name is, Priscovia Senjenjo, will graduate this December as a teacher from
Oh.
Teachers College, and she'll be teaching secondary school. And her sister, Agatha, has just started Teachers College. So these girls are incredible role models for the best girls from
Right,
the
and
village.
I think that's something that's very important, that young women are seeing, oh, she can do it.
Yes.
So now they start to
Yes.
think in terms that, oh, I could probably do this.
Yes.
And I remember I had a friend in college that I was quite often tutoring, and she got a job teaching, and I went up to see her, and I thought, if she can do this, I can do it. So I decided to go back to college.
There you go.
You know, but it's that same kind of mentality. Once you see someone you know doing it, and I'm sure it was the same with Beth. They probably hadn't seen a woman, in the village that was educated and knew how to do things. And so that was kind of like an eye-opener.
And knew how to say no.
Oh, yeah.
You know, how not to get pregnant and at an early age.
I remember the last time when you were in, you were talking about that issue, that a lot of times to keep them from going to the secondary school, they would try to get them pregnant.
Well, at first the boys were very jealous because the scholarship was just for girls from the village. And that was their modus operandi. But we said as soon as the girls have their babies, get them right back in school, and they did that. And pretty soon the boys saw that this was not working, and so the pregnancy rate has gone way down. It has plummeted. And what's happened is quite wonderful because we have literally been able to help change the way the village looks at the education of women. And I think even more importantly, we've helped the women to look at themselves in a different way. And today in the village, husbands want educated wives because educated wives can help bring home the bacon.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, though, too, it would have some spillover effect to the boys.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
That they would see that education is something that is very useful, and they don't have to think just in terms of being farmers anymore.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So it might
It's
encourage...
It's opening up horizons to them that were just literally unavailable before, that they knew nothing about. And so our girls are wonderful role models. But when they first went to high school, they weren't passing their exams at all, and we were concerned. Why weren't they? And we asked another Peace Corps volunteer in the area to do some research for us, and she said, okay, they need books, they need to be tutored, and they need a library. Well, library, we were just doing scholarships, you know, who do a library. Well, we built, as a Peace Corps partnership program, we built a library in the village, and it's just beautiful. It's huge. It's the largest library in the Northwest Province, and with the help of Books for Africa, we sent 20,000 volumes of books, and World Vision helped us with the transport of getting the books there. It's the best stocked library in the whole Northwest Province now. And
it's amazing because people come from all over the place, too.
Right, and it's not just the village, it's a resource for the entire area.
Yeah,
then.
It's an attraction. People come there, and it's even a little bit of income for the village.
Because if you come from outside the village and you have to pay to use the library a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and it's amazing, too, because one of Beth's girls actually is a librarian there. So she takes a lot of pride in that, in the library, keeping it up to date, you know, making sure it's running smoothly and giving back, basically.
And because it was a Peace Corps partnership program, that means that the villagers themselves built it, and they have real ownership pride of it, and they take very good care of it, and we haven't had any problems with vandalism or anything like that. And we also did solar panels, and this is where your story is going to come in. We did solar panels and put lights in the library, the first electricity in the village, and that enabled the girls.
Oh, yeah. So that's where I was saying before about how the girls were not able to study at night.
Because they had all these chores and now it's dark.
Yes, yeah. So then they were able to use the library, you know, at night after all the chores and you know, going to school during the day, and they would stay up late and study. So they really had to be quite determined and worked very hard with the scholarships, you know, to go to school even because of their household responsibilities. And the library is so neat, and we did have some help from National Solar for the solar lights, but it's so neat because that just wasn't possible before. You know, light and literacy basically for the village.
Yeah, you know, it's a lot of times we don't think about these things because they're always available to us. And to go back and try to remember what it was like before people had light at night, you know, it's a big issue. I mean, it's something that I remember getting a conversation with my grandfather, and he was talking about when electricity came. He lived in rural Arkansas.
Yeah, sure.
And so this was, you know, he was born...
Probably in a cabin?
Yes. And he was born in 1888, so I mean, this was a big deal to him, being able to have light
Right.
in the cabin. And I forget, I think it was roughly before he moved from Arkansas to Oklahoma, but it was still a very rural area.
So you do feel, when we visit the village, we feel like we're stepping back
Yeah.
a century or so. I have to show you this. These,
Okay.
These are our Beth's ladies, the girls who have gone to college, graduated from college, announced to me roundly on the last visit that they were no longer Beth's girls. And I thought, oh, and they said, no, we are Beth's ladies. And they want that acknowledgement because they see themselves as role models. And when they sign a contract for the scholarship, they promise that they will be good role models for younger girls. And they also promise that they'll find a way to give back to the village. So Sandra is our librarian. Prudence is a social worker who works for World Vision and is the liaison with our village and with Beth's girls. And Rachel is also a social worker, and she's just graduated. So we are so proud of and aren't they beautiful?
Yes.
It really is amazing to me how, the lives of so many women have changed out of a tragedy. I just think that's an amazing thing. Like Beth really has inadvertently touched the lives of many,
Yeah.
still 12 years later.
But like you were also emphasizing the fact that it also changes the way the village looks at things, not just the young women.
Exactly.
And that is an important step, that they can see education as being something that's valuable, that there are other things that they can do in life besides being farmers.
Yes.
But they're still connected to the land,
Of
and
course.
so I think that's a real good lesson, and it's one of the reasons why I like having you on, because it's something that I think we kind of forget, because we have all this technology, all this advantages,
Yes.
and we don't sometimes appreciate what we do have, and just like with some effort, you can make a huge difference.
Yes, as small as we are. Look what we've done.
So much goes such a long way.
Another thing that we've done is we've initiated a preschool in the village. And no rural Zambian areas have preschools, and if you find a preschool, it would be in an affluent urban area,
Right.
because they would have to pay the teachers. We've started our own preschool, and it has been so successful that the Millennium Goals of the global community is now emphasizing early childhood development, and they're putting pressure on the Zambian government that you've got to start doing something with your preschool with early
Right.
childhood development. And the people from the Ministry of Education actually came to look at our preschool program, and we met a lovely young woman at World Beat Festival who is studying for a PhD at the University of Minnesota in early childhood development and in international education. And she has visited the villages for 2 summers running, and she has helped to create a curriculum, and they have actually lifted some of her curriculum to be in the national curriculum over there. So we not only have a successful preschool, but it's becoming a model. Can you imagine?
Well, I mean,
imagine.
but you already had you had the library, you had some of the structure there, so it was easy for them to implement, as opposed to if they had to build a structure, if they had to train people and bring them in to,
And a lot of the study is done too in the library. Like here's a picture with the children actually using the library. I love this picture. I think it's awesome. And so all the books behind them.
And they have meetings in the library, it's a meeting place and so on. It's a comfortable, wonderful, welcoming space.
I didn't ask you this last time, but what language do they speak?
It is the Lunda tribe.
Okay.
They speak Lunda. However, the national language of Zambia is English, because they were a British colony.
Okay.
But only people who are educated speak English.
So the children help teach their parents
English.
in the village.
So in the village, yes, the parents are, you would say, illiterate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But now you have more of the kids that are literate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we never have trouble getting interpreters.
Oh, okay.
And our best girls are wonderful interpreters, and they're always with us as hostesses, aren't they, Jerry? Yeah.
We do have an audience today, so.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But what I really want to say is this is what we've been doing, and currently we are building a small structure for the preschool, a 2-room structure, and we have a wonderful donor, Baldan Charity, is helping us to build that structure, and we're very excited about that. And the Ministry of Education has sent us a full-blown certified preschool teacher now for the program.
Amazing.
This is amazing. But we've been looking, I mean, this is 12 years we've been doing this, and my husband and I aren't getting any younger, you know. And
that happens.
It happens. We've been married 40 years too, you know.
Oh, okay.
and we're looking for sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we see that sustainability will come in. We've asked, when we go over there, we sit down with the villagers and we say, what are your dreams? What is it that you want? And every time they have said, right from the first time we visited, they have said, a secondary school in the village. A secondary school in the village.
Which would make it so they don't have to go
right.
To boarding school, which is very, very expensive.
Well, not to mention...
Which nobody can afford,
yeah,
really.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then there's like that separation away from your family and you know, your support system.
Exactly.
Yes.
And sometimes the girls get into trouble because of that.
Right.
You know, because they don't have the family discipline.
Yeah. And I've seen that when young guys go off to college a great distance. That's happened too. That you know, they were good students in high school while the family support system was there. They get, you know, far away and they start to party and everything else, and things fall apart. And so I can see why that would be a very beneficial thing to have a secondary school in the village. And they've already got kind of infrastructure set up.
Well, we said, what do you need for a
Okay.
secondary school? They said a library.
So is
Got
that, yeah.
They said we need a science lab. So we have introduced another partner to the village, and that's Engineers Without Borders. And they are currently constructing a beautiful, huge science lab for them. And so what they further need are teachers' houses, more classrooms, administration buildings. They need latrines. They need water systems. They need playing fields for their games and so on.
Yeah.
And we have been, that is our current project. We are working to try to help the village. We're working to try to raise funds to help the village complete construction it would need to be a secondary school. And the Ministry of Education is already on board and is very supportive of this.
So basically, we're beginning to peter out the end of our scholarships for girls, and we're going to be putting that money into sustainability to have the secondary school within the village, which will also be able, the males will be able to use it as well as the females.
Right.
And what's really neat is that the village's concept of education and the value of it has changed so much over the years that the women are still going to school the same amount as, you know, as we have grown to. And so that's amazing. So we're very excited about that, and we think that this sustainability of a secondary school would be phenomenal.
Plus the community at large. In order to go to college, you have to pass certain exams from
Right.
your high school,
Yeah.
and if you haven't passed them, you can keep taking them year after year. You have to pay, but you can keep taking them. But how do you prepare for that? Well, they had no way to prepare before, and now, and these are the adults in the community, now they have the library, and then they would have the secondary school, and they could prepare, and anybody in the village would have access to the education.
And the science lab would also be a part of that then,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And that would help them see things differently as well, as
Oh, yes.
seeing the scientific method and trying
Absolutely.
things out
Sure.
and
And
experimenting.
that's part of what a secondary school is
Right.
required to do in Zambia.
And I believe we had a picture of that, and hopefully we'll get that put up. But there was also another project, I believe.
Well,
you
that
were-
was the preschool.
Oh, the
That was
preschool.
the preschool.
Okay.
And they're the most beautiful children. Everybody who sees those wonderful children wants to help them, wants to support them. So Shirley Elementary School, for example, did a penny drive for these children.
Mm-hmm.
This is halfway around the world, you understand. They are on the other, literally on the other side of the world. And they came up with over $1,000. How many pennies is that? and they bought supplies for the children, and they bought, they were meeting at the time in an old church, and it was a cold concrete floor, and they bought mats for the children to sit on and little chairs for them. There were wooden pews in the church, but that was all. But the little chairs made the pews into desks.
Oh,
you see?
okay. All right.
So we are working with the local community as well.
So basically, you know, EBZEF is a small nonprofit, but it is a 501c3. And I did want to say that we have a founder's grant that covers all the overhead. So any donations that we do receive go directly into our EBZEF projects.
100%.
So we've really been able to do a lot, even though we're a small nonprofit. It's been very amazing. Yeah.
And so, like, I do want to let our viewers know that at the end of the show, during the credits, the contact information will be showing there. But you could go ahead and say what it is. If people
sure.
want to get in touch with your group.
Absolutely. So you can get involved with our group by going to www.ebzef.org. And we're also on Facebook. We're pretty active on social media. So please feel free if you're interested in Africa at all, women's education. Please join us on Facebook and share with your friends. And also check out our website if you want to know a little bit more about the history of not only Africa but EBZEF as well. We've got newsletters on there which are very in-depth and tell all the way back. It's like a story of EBZEF. They're really interesting, as well as our annual reports.
And there is a lot of information in those newsletters.
Yeah, a lot.
4 pages or 6 pages?
4 pages.
Yeah. And so there is quite a bit of information in there about what's going on. So,
and the website is deep. It is deep, so you can read about all sorts of things about Northwest Zambia and the girls and the
pretty interesting.
Stories about the girls themselves.
Yeah.
And,
So do you have further plans? Do you have things that, I mean, you go back there periodically and talk to them about what they need. Are there some other things that might be coming up?
The secondary school is an enormous project.
Okay.
That is a huge, huge project. And as I say, we are a tiny, tiny nonprofit. And so one of the things we're going to be looking for, and we'll be trying to launch a campaign, a fundraising campaign and so on, but we're looking for partners.
Okay.
We're looking for big partners who can come in and build some of these structures, and like Engineers Without Borders is building that science lab, and they're going to do some work with the sanitation and maybe composting toilets, in fact, composting latrines, and they're going to work with the water system and so on. But we need partners to do that, and we need maybe corporate partners. We need this is something we haven't done before, but
yeah, we're excited.
But we never built a library before either.
Yes,
and we never get scholarships before.
Yeah.
And,
but I mean, it's a model that people can then use that model and go other places, not just Africa, but
that's right.
Absolutely,
that's right.
Latin America, say, or other places that need it. Even some places in this country could probably use that. And so I want to really thank you for coming on the show and sharing
you for having us.
This information, because like I said, I think it's a story that doesn't get told, and I think in this day and age we need some hope for the future and see how things can be better. And so I want to thank you both for being on, and our audience as well.
Thank you.
And so anyway, I'd like to thank our viewers for watching this episode of The Valley View, and come back next time and we'll have a new show for you.